If there is a God, give me a sign. See, I told you.
Hello everybody. Alright, I've turned on my screen recorder here. We're going to open up Procreate, the art making app on my tablet. We're going to look in the illustration section here. We're going to go over this imagery used in a recent video. We're going to take a look at this concept of there's a bit of something like a redundancy. Two stories of creation in the book of Genesis, in Genesis 1, and then again we have the retelling 2 chapters later. So this is curious. There's some interesting ideas about that. I'll point you in the direction of some I find interesting, and nonetheless we seem to have two worlds embedded in this idea of the 666 and 616 represented or decoded as the number of the beast. I believe the King James Version says 603 score and 6. And I showed how there's some kind of, say, hidden or maybe inspired or embedded information in that. I want to address the idea of the 666 as carbon, stable carbon, having 6 protons, 6 neutrons, 6 electrons, and so stable carbon and the number of a man and the number of a beast being carbon-based life forms seems pretty simple to me. And then we're told Jesus is born in a manger or a stable. So if Christ was born into stable carbon, Jesus is flesh, and so we have this kind of pattern that we're in the world that Christ is born into, or we're in the situation that is analogous to Christ's situation. So the human condition can be illuminated by looking at religions and mythologies and patterns like the Christian myth. And again, myths don't mean something isn't true. Typically it's a streamlined truth, and we could have the true myth as well. I mean, these stories come from somewhere, right? And then we have the 616 in a papyrus fragment of the book of the Apocalypse or Revelation. So there's the 616. That papyrus is dated pretty early, so some theologians and scholars have speculated that there's a number there linked to the Greek gematria of the name for the Emperor Nero at the time. So Nero was thought to represent the pattern of the beast at that time. So he was the military and the church, or what had been taken over or deemed the church. The original churches were house churches, so they would look more like what's behind me than a cathedral. Those are beautiful as well. Anyway, so we have this idea that there's two different ways to spell out or write out the name for Nero, which gives you two different Greek gematria numbers, one 666 and the other 616. That may or may not be an explanation, and it may be a partial explanation which has an analogous pattern on a deeper level. So the esoteric information is embedded in the same story, but it may be over your head, like that parabolic trajectory of a parable. Think of the punt or field goal in football going over your head. They call it football, and only punters and field goal kickers and other special teams actually touch the ball with the foot. It's curious. Anyway, what we talk about when we talk about the NFL is the Nephilim games. Kind of in pattern, we have something like the spirit of a city or the spirit of a god or being or mascot or icon represented in the colors and patterns and imagery of a team and the name and maybe even the location, and other aspects of the city may play into that or be represented by the mascot for the team, which then goes to battle and simulacrum warfare with other teams. And these competitions were originally about marksmanship or hitting a target, and then the simulacrum warfare was added, and you get the Native American hoop and spear mixed with simulacrum warfare, and you got your Nephilim games. And some people don't know they're playing a game, and that's the infinite game theory here. And we have something that could look like an 8 or 2 zeros. We have 2 orders of time or 2 circles represented here on the turntable. We got Tom Brady and the roulette wheel. When I see a roulette wheel, I think of Dostoevsky. He was a notorious gambling addict. Don't know why I felt the need to share that. That's not particularly relevant to this video, although it may be somehow. So we have a world that is, say, 3-dimensional or carbon-based in the flesh, where flesh and spirit are co-mingled together. And then we have an in-between world, and then another world that is up for grabs. So we have possibly a conceptual world that is yet to be determined, and an in-between world that could be like a purgatorio in between an inferno and a paradiso. Paradiso might be eternity, so it could be something like something crystalline or fractal-like. Could be quite a bit of order there. Whereas the inferno, the fire, that seems like a symbol for chaos. And the in-between place, which would be the mixer on the turntables, if we're looking at this set of 2 turntables as a tool that's created to do something to keep the party going, which is essentially the soundtrack to eternity. The 2 record players were originally not designed to be so much as scratched as to be used in unison during the disco age to keep the party going. So you would spin one record and blend it into the next record to keep the music playing and keep everybody on the dance floor, the danse macabre floor. In the middle, we have the mixer and the knobs and the sliding vertical slots that the knobs slide up and down on these typical mixers made by, say, Pioneer, Vestec, or Techniques. They kind of look like jail bars or little flags with the flag going up and down on the pole as you adjust the sound. So the levels go up and down, the feels go up and down. If we look at this as a pictographic icon embedded in the turntables that represents on many fractal levels of reality, then we see what's happening here could happen on a lower level and a larger level. You could apply what you learned from using these turntables and say beat juggling or mixing songs together. You could be a wedding DJ or a turntablist in a hip hop outfit or something else, or just a DJ on a radio station who likes to play vinyl because you're a hipster. Does it sound better? I don't know. This hologram vinyl sounds better than the hologram digital song. The vinyl for me is often about the physicality of being there. When I put the record on, I'm more prone to pay attention and to be present and mindful in the moment. And someone who can do that with the digital stuff may enjoy it more than vinyl. I also like the sound of vinyl for some genres. Just useless information I thought I'd throw in here that I might cut out and post. So we've got something, pardon the flat earth, if you're not a fan of this kind of like firmament dome over something that may be, not entirely unlike the flat earth model or the azimuthal equidistant map that's inspiring the UN flag, that kind of top-down North Pole in the center, Polaris eye view. That kind of view of a world maps onto the Ptolemaic worldview that was popular for a long time. And that geometry bears out. Ptolemy was able to map stars and predict their movements pretty accurately, and mathematicians and astronomers and astrologers used his findings and his model for quite some time until it was kind of intellectually bullied out of history. Now, that doesn't mean I'm a flat earther, but I also understand the world as something that has a lot to do with collective consciousness. Also, I feel like we were in a world that changed. So maybe we were on a ball and now we're in the roulette wheel or the Catalina wine mixer. Boats and hoes get together. Are you getting on the boat, or are you getting in the hose, or what are you doing? Are you going to grab a hoe and get on the boat? The days of Noah are upon us. We play these patterns out again. So let's take a look at what I did in my video in regards to some of these animations. Let's fast forward through this video here and we'll take a look at the 4D trick. So this idea, we've got the government base. I thought it was in Maryland, then it was in Canada. Maybe it's in Maryland again. The 4D trick kind of moves around. Fort Detrick, Dietrich. Anyway, that's a kind of like where the men who stare at goats do their goat staring, remote viewing and things like that. You stare at the remote. So what do I want to watch? So this will make sense. I'm not. This isn't scripted. Some of these new formats will be scripted. So I'll read an essay and then present it to you. And then some days like today, I'll completely wing it based on a video I just want to say a little extra few things about. So we've got the 4D trick. There's 2 double Ds. And I think of these 2 domes looking like 2 bras, right? So you can see that turntable, if it's made out of fabric, you've got these 2 dome shapes. And if they're represented by D, that would be 2 large D cups. So that's 4 Ds is, well, each dome would represent 1 D cup. So that's your 4 D cups, 40 cups. 3 cups of tea, we're friends. 4 D cups, more than friends? Brah, it's Abraham's bosoms. So does this language make sense? I'm not trying to make light of scripture here. There is a type of, let's say, there's a type of humor. I guess you could laugh at some of this stuff, but it's manifold. So you probably don't want to spend too much time laughing at it, but you know, an ineffable and limitless source of creation wouldn't have any problem making something that's serious and revelatory, but also scary, also beautiful, and sometimes funny, and sometimes tragic. So yeah, sometimes there's little jokes in here, like bra, B-R-A, and Abraham, and abracadabra. Oops. Abraham. Is there a reason why you can't have a child? Anyway. 4 D cups. So we have the Sublime Song, 40 ounces to freedom. 40 is a number that pops up in Abraham's story and the Jewish story in general. Moses spends 40 days on the mountain, then he gets the 2 commandments, or the 2 tablets, the 2 stone pillars with the words, the boxes full of letters. He takes those down and changes some of the stuff because of the hard-heartedness of the people. And so it seems one way to look at some of this humor is there's kind of like a movement towards a kind of a paganification of the mainstream Christian church, and a re-enchantment with some panpsychism ideas with people that are either on the fringe of the church, or maybe interested in some New Age ideas and some Christian language. You know, they're looking for Christ consciousness, or the upper room, or something like that. Words and phrases that get taken out of context, or wholly created, like Christ consciousness is not a concept that is mentioned explicitly in any of the Christian literature. but it's a popular idea and people are looking for something. And this is the Peep Show, the two worlds, the conceptual world, the what if world. What if is the name of Marvel Comics lines that are, what if it went this way? And then you take a potential world and you freeze it in a moment, and then you switch some stuff around, and then you hit play again. And in a world that is consciousness made by a ineffable creative intellect with which we get to participate with when we create work, and that created work is co-created work, which would explain why there is collective memory, akashic records, or predictive programming embedded in things that we create that we may not be conscious of. My artwork's been predicting the future symbolically with iconography and symbolism for over a decade now, but I very often don't notice it until after an event happens, and then I realize, oh wow, I was kind of making pictures that are symbolically really close to this for quite a while, a number of years ago. And this has been regularly happening now. So I'm looking back at some of my work now and wondering if it's going to pop up somehow in the other levels of our experience here. So the 4D trick would be getting these two girls back to back. I don't know, is that two bras, two Abraham's valleys? So the concept in the Gospel of Luke is that there's a rich man, and the rich man is in Abraham's valley, or he's on one side of a chasm, and there's a valley. So think of the mixer. There's a Catalina wine mixer, and you got your Inferno, and you got your Paradise. And this rich man is saying, I see Abraham, and Lazarus is with him. Lazarus, take your finger and dip it in that water, and let me see some of, let me get a taste of that holy water there. So we see a rich man, he's a man of the material, and he is now in a spiritual world or a conceptual world, and he wants to just have his feels again. We also see this rich man dipping his finger in the water embedded in the image of the Salvator Mundi, which is also in the video which we're discussing. This Gnostic Sunday School I just uploaded has both of those visuals that I'm referring to. So we have this image here where Christ is in that Radio Rahim police chokehold. I can't breathe. I need some of that spirit, that breath, that life, some breath for the boy. And then we have Christ here with his two fingers, dipping the fingers into the water. And the rich man expects Lazarus to dip his fingers in the water and then tap him on the tongue, like, here you go there, buddy. There's your drop of water. And there's also a fractal in nature embedded here, in that one drop of water is going to satisfy this guy. So are these giants, or is it a fractal world? Is it the Q metal world that Paul almost went to? The road to Damascus symbolically could read to the manifold metallic road to hell, the chrome world, the simulacrum paradise that's digital, or the simulacrum conceptual world that's digital. So you got your random name generator, and then you've got your infinite ineffable intelligence, and you get your random name generator to mimic as best as it can the ineffable intelligence, and then maybe you can trap something in there and give someone an experience. Who knows? That would be kind of a Matrix experience. The Wachowski brothers said in an interview that when they were originally trying to do the Matrix film, the screenplay had not people in pods literally plugged in, but people spiritually plugged in psychologically. So they weren't actually located in those giant towers with the amniotic fluid and all the alien probe hoses going up in them, and this shit is creepy and weird, and I suppose it adds to the visual appeal of the scene in the film and the horror of it all. So I guess it would be less traumatic and scary and impactful if they showed you something closer to the truth, that the kind of like an archontic infection would be something like that hive mind, or that reptile brain that gets tapped and released, and it's like a bad pattern, a mimetic virus that replicates itself in the mind, like radical free-floating ions that have a pattern embedded, and they radioactively get into your head, maybe through Bluetooth headphones you wear all day, you fucking idiot. Or maybe some other way, I don't know. Anyway, this bad patterns get in your head and they repeat, and all of a sudden the lion becomes the man instead of the man swallowing the lion. And this radioactivity maps onto those turntables again. We've got the symbolism of the turntables, broadcasting music, keeping the party going. And then we got Brian Wilson and the Beach Boys record. He's the Pied Piper with the magic transistor radio that takes the kids away to some magic place in the evenings. And we've got Abraham's Valley, which is described as a bosom. And now I understand why the valley and the bosom are the same. When you look at the two turntables, you see two breasts here, or two domes, and that's the 4D cup. So is it one double D world where it's just D&D and D&D? It's Dungeons and Dragons, and what's in the middle there is the Catalina wine mixer, where there's dragons, there's dungeons, but there's a little bit of paradise and all that stuff in between. That kind of seems to be where we're at, and it could be a bit of a trap. And how you walk through it and go out is maybe, you vote yourself off the island. I'm not suggesting suicide. I have a strong spiritual intimation and burden on my heart to let people know the Gnostics weren't world haters. They had a Weltschmerz, a world weariness, in which they understood that they were in the world but not of it, and that there was something else going on here. So we are spirits in the material world, as the police told us. Death, Where Is Your Sting? Yeah, he was in that kind of reggae pop rock band in the 70s and 80s. I've got the vinyl right over here. Speaking of vinyl. So the conceptual world would be that roulette world. And that roulette is almost like a sauce, right? You got to let it simmer. You got to let that cream simmer. That's how you get the goats. Cream rises to the top. Conceptual world, some of these ideas, they look like a 6th round draft pick, right? No one's really excited. They're like, what? Predictive programming, overlays, mirrored. This guy's crazy. He's got that pair of whatever pair of doilies. He's got some coaster thing. I don't know what his problem is. He's crazy. 6th round draft pick. 5 years later, many of you don't know about it, but I've repeatedly predicted the Super Bowl score using unified code theory. T-shirts available. Link is in the description. I can't monetize my page and get one of those fancy, like the row of T-shirts right down there. You click on the thing under the window and oh look, then Jay's got a book and a T-shirt and a sticker and a poster. I could just click right there and go there. And you gotta scroll down and read the text. It's a little less visual. Sorry about that, but YouTube feels like some of my material is too controversial to allow me to monetize, because monetize maybe looks like, I'm being legitimized. But also, not being monetized allows me to do the house church and promote some other things that I don't feel comfortable monetizing. So there you go. There's a bonus to still being non-monetized. And thanks to the patrons, too, who helped me out. I'm going to continue to make videos like this, as well as the old decoding videos, esoteric jokes, music videos, some of this stuff. I'll slightly upgrade some more of my production gear. This iPad is not what it used to be. Sometimes Apple does that on purpose to let you know it's time to play the money game again and get on your knees. It's the best tablet in the world, though. So I don't know. It's like I have a love-hate relationship. Again, there's purgatory, right? Love and hate. So I mentioned some things about what else did I want to bring up? Oh, right. The Dungeons and Dragons is referenced in that Bickford Schmeckler movie. They read the book and they realize that the co-creative imagination and living life as if it's in that bigger level of Dungeons and Dragons, it's like, oh, I'm going to step up the game. I'm not going to play the game in the back of the comic book shop anymore. I'm going to leave the comic book store and with my friends, and we're all going to go to, say, Comic Con, and we'll play with our lightsabers and our costumes. And then largely you become less of a insular, closeted nerd, and people realize you're actually kind of cool. And that happened to a lot of people I know in school. All the stuff that I was into in high school is cool now. My brother went to high school 10 years after I did. He's 10 years younger than me, my little brother. And I remember he came home and all these cute girls are hanging out with him and his skater buddies. And I was like, whoa, the girls really like skaters now. That's cool. We were art fags and skate fags back when I was rolling around on my plank of wood, walking the plank, so to speak. didn't want to be seen as a rebel, so I shopped at J. Crew but rode my skateboard everywhere. Then that became a popular look, so I had to stop doing that. Now I don't care about any of that shit. So I feel like, what's the point of doing all of this? I'm trying to make sense of how, we're kind of being shown through patterns and the emergent ridiculousness of the world and a kind of obvious spiritual warfare going on. I would think we're being shown that it's time that we consider a bigger fractal. So again, the D&D, Dungeons and Dragons, D-cups, or something bigger and more important. Yes, those things are patterns. The turntable, the bra, Abraham's bosom, D-cups. Abraham had big man boobs. Maybe that's why he didn't have any kids, because he had a hard time finding some female companionship. Or maybe Abraham had a hormone problem and his man boobs were actually a sign that, there was something going on and he couldn't, maybe it was his fault that his wife couldn't get pregnant and they needed that angelic intervention. Maybe Abraham got tricked by a demon, and that's the story, right? Like something evil, a bad pattern got in Abraham's head, and it was like, kill your kid and God will give you another one. And he's like, yeah, I'm going to go up there. I'm going to do it up on the mountain. And then an angel's like, no, don't do that. We were kidding. So are they punking Abraham? Is it a joke? I think Abraham was on some bad pattern, and he took a bad pattern too seriously and almost effed up his level of the dome. So why would Christ help those guys out when he's harrowing hell? They didn't know any better, and they had faith, and they thought they were following God's orders. They had seen things unseen, and they were in shock and awe and scared or in complete rapture, and they did things because they had been in an altered state of consciousness and under the influence of disinformation. So God forgave them. Jesus forgave them. And he said, hey, come back with me to purgatory. And don't do everything I do, because they're going to kill me again. But when you come back, I'll show you, how to walk the path so that you don't get too close to the ice or the fire, and you walk by the river where they combine and you can tolerate it and even learn to love it for a while. And then maybe you'll find a different river to swim in and do your laundry in someday. Abraham's bosom is translated more correctly as Abraham's valley or veil. So we have a veil being pulled back. So Abraham opens up and shows you the bosom. And I'm thinking of Superman, not something from a Girls Gone Wild. Abraham gone wild in the valley. Jesus is like, I'm dying to see this. I'm coming down there. Don't make me come down there. I heard there's girls and they're going wild. And they swoop down. All right, I'm losing it now. I can't get out of it. It's a good half hour. It's probably not going to cut any of this out in post either. I just let myself ramble. We got refrigerator or traffic noise, but that's the vibe here in the house studio. Working from home, trying to make sense of stuff, showing you some interesting patterns. Coincidences happen, but I'm going to stack up so many of them that you're going to be like, well, something's going on. So I'm not always right on board with what Jason's talking about, you may say, but I think at this point I'm going to be able to show you some amazing things in the Bible that suggest that there was a significant level of intelligence embedding into Scripture, advanced scientific ideas, as well as the turntables. And I didn't even show you the Pioneer Valley of the 413 and how Massachusetts looks like a damaged turntable. And you've got Worcester, Mass would be like the Catalina wine mixer, and out in Western Mass where I'm from, that would be your record player on the left. And then we've got, think of a double record that's like Electric Ladyland is a 4D record. It's got D sides. It's got 4 sides, A, B, C, and D. It's 2 pieces of vinyl. So before we go, take a look at the Neon Bible. Put my microphone down real quick. Let's do this. Arcade Fire's album, Neon Bible. Now this format on vinyl is 2 discs, and disc 1, side A and B, nothing unusual. Then we take a look at disc number 2. Let's take a closer look at this. So what you're going to see here is nothing unusual. Black vinyl. You can see the way the light reflects on that. You can see that there's the grooves in there. So pretty standard. But when I read the songs here, that's 9, 10, and 11. Windowsill, No Cars Go, My Body is a Cage. I love that song. Nice esoteric jux available to go along with that. Someone did a interesting juxtaposition, syncing a cut of an Italian spaghetti western type film with that song. But that's the end of the album. So on side 4 or side D, and you can see it here, there is Neon Bibles imprinted in here. And when I see that spinning on the turntable, it reminds me of a praxinoscope. Interesting. So we have 4 sides to the vinyl, but they only use 3 for the music, and then we have a kind of praxinoscope. I think a holograms praxinoscope is an optical illusion. So what we have is something that seems a little backwards, the Neon Bible. Take a look at this. Neo and Bible. Neo and Bible. That's maybe just some weird coincidence. Okay, so consider that you have the 3 synoptic gospels, Matthew, Mark, and Luke, and they're seen as similar in format and material. Then you've got John, and John is very different, a little esoteric in nature. Elaine Pagels will say that John was written in response to the Gospel of Thomas and is opposed to it. I don't know. I tend to lean more towards Ismo Dunderberg's position that the John and the Gospel of Thomas are both kind of Gnostic-leaning texts. Not in that they embed the Gnostic myth entirely, but that they require that gnosis or Sophia in order to decipher. Like the pronouncement in the book of Revelation, right before we're given the number of the man and beast, 666 or 666. We feel, we see, let he who has wisdom decipher its meaning. And wisdom is Sophia in the Greek, a woman's name, and it's also a Gnostic concept that St. Paul was shown by God during that road to Damascus. So the manifold of metal reminds me of Damascus steel or crucible steel. And when I think of the Q metal in the desert, you've got the manifoldness that could represent the many layers or ripples emanating away from a nucleus. So you've got like something radioactive. And that radioactive information coming out reminds me of the vinyl record and the turntable itself. So we have the Neon Bible would be the thing that everybody can see, but that's the synoptic illusion. So we have the synoptic. I think of sin missing the mark, optic. So you can't see the target, can't see the forest from the trees. So you have 1, 2, 3 gospels, and then the 4th. It's interesting because in Japan, 4 is associated with death. The number 4, she, it's a word for death as well. Not a lucky number, according to them. So that's interesting. You've got the Word made flesh. It's somehow something going on here in the physical world has a mortality and immortality coexisting. And that's very much in line with that middle place pattern of purgatory. And is that represented as the place of the Neon Bible, or, my body is a cage for what? I think that's part of the synoptic Neon Bible. And the cage is set free in the Gospel of John, or the side D, or the D cup 4 cups, 32 ounces. I don't know what that means. There's a few different ways I could interpret that. Anyway, so that's what I saw with the Neon Bible. We've got an interesting pattern there mapping onto the Bible itself. You've got 4 sides to the record and a D side, and you have ABC 1, 2, 3, 3 synoptic gospels, and then John, short and sweet, Word made flesh, and a praxinoscope hologram. Okay, interesting. So I'll get more into some symbolism regarding some of the things I brought up here. We'll go deeper into that. This one's long enough though, so I will call it quits here, and then we'll talk about some of the other stuff in here. Yeah, I've got some older videos in the works that are sequels to some of the other material I've already uploaded. And I've also got new formats like this, and we'll take the camera in the studio. We'll do like a Gnostic picture pages where I set this situation up over by my easel, and we'll do some artwork and some hand-drawn illustration. I'll also screen capture some illustration here on the iPad. I'll draw that out in front of you. We'll screen cap it so you can see what I see on the screen, and I'll talk to you on screen here, and we'll go over this so that, you know, when I look at the camera and I remember I'm explaining this to someone, I'll try to remember, I'll act as if the camera lens is someone who's not really heard too much about what I'm talking about and is just kind of vaguely familiar with some of these ideas. And then we'll also do some more advanced decoding videos for people that are up to speed on that and like the old format that I worked in. I'll just keep making that look as slick and professional as possible. And I'll do some micro docs. I've got a new lens for the camera and some other gear that I'm going to learn to use and step up the game of what I'm able to shoot, and really make the best out of my gorgeous studio and comfortable space here that I can set up this decent camera in. So thanks. Hope you can hear me. Am I covering my microphone? I'll figure it out, and all the mistakes I'm making, point them out to me, you know, politely or constructively, and we'll fix this so that, you know, the stuff I do right, I'll keep doing, and the stuff that maybe doesn't quite look or sound as good as it could, let me know, and I'll tweak it so that we make something here that's worth keeping sustainable. You can contribute to that by helping the algorithm, helping me use the algorithm to spread the video just by subscribing and hitting like. Or you can hit the link tree and get a t-shirt, or even better yet, head over to Patreon and hit me up for as little as $3 a month. And we'll keep doing this. And I post longer videos like this for Patreon members. That's something I've started doing. So thanks for sticking with me while I took a break, got some new gear, set up a new studio and a new apartment, and we'll keep this going. Thanks for coming out. Good night. God bless.